All right, folks, let's talk about that insanity that just dropped. I was trying to figure out the vibe for this episode, and I kept thinking, who's the mastermind behind this particular brand of chaos? And it hit me. It's gotta be the director who probably once pitched a 20-minute scene where a character just stared at a tumbleweed. Seriously, someone needs to tell this guy that long, drawn-out silence is usually for dramatic effect, not for filling runtime. He's the same guy who probably insists that every single sound effect, from a saloon door creaking to a distant coyote howl, needs its own 15-second intro music cue. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. And honestly, watching this episode, it felt like he was just throwing darts at a wall covered in Western tropes and hoping something stuck. We've got a saloon, a salon, a poker game gone wrong, a train, bandits, sheriffs, and enough random historical inaccuracies to make a history teacher spontaneously combust. What's next? A space cowboy showdown? Because if this episode is any indication, they're not afraid to go there. And speaking of going places, buckle up, because this ride is about to get seriously bumpy. And by bumpy, I mean we're going to question all our life choices that led us to watching this. Prepare yourselves, because we're diving headfirst into the wild, absolutely bonkers West. And before we get too deep into this cowboy hat-wearing madness, if you're enjoying this deep dive into cartoon chaos, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it helps keep this train of commentary rolling, and frankly, it's less painful than getting shot by a Pinkerton agent. Now, back to the dusty trails and questionable life choices. So this episode, Family Guy Season 24, Episode 10, kicks off with a scene that's pure, unadulterated Western cliché, but then it immediately starts twisting those clichés into something genuinely bizarre. We've got this character, Quiet Burp, who's apparently a legendary poker player, which, right off the bat, is a hilarious name. The whole setup with the saloon next to the salon is genius in its absurdity. It's the kind of joke that only works because it's so stupid. Then bam, we're into a poker game where Quiet Burp is accused of cheating with 4 deuces, which, if you know poker, is a pretty bad hand to cheat with, but that's beside the point. The real action starts when Vivienne, who's apparently a man's name now because, reasons, gets involved. It's a whole tangled mess of aliases and accusations, and then suddenly we're on a train, and things get even crazier. The show is trying to tell a story about the American West, but it's doing it through the lens of characters who clearly haven't read a history book since, well, never. We get a whole subplot about John Wilkes Booth being kicked out of an improv group, which is so random it's actually brilliant. It's like the writers just grabbed a bunch of notes from different eras and slammed them together. This episode isn't just about cowboys and bandits. It's a commentary on how we remember history, or rather how we hilariously misremember and repurpose it for our own bizarre narratives. The pacing is all over the place, which is par for the course with this show, but it actually kind of works here, giving it this dreamlike, chaotic feel. It's not a perfect episode, not by a long shot, but it's definitely one that sticks with you because it's just so much. It's a wild ride, and by the end, you're left wondering what on earth you just watched, but in a good way. It's a classic Family Guy blend of the completely stupid and the surprisingly clever, all wrapped up in a dusty, anachronistic package. It's a standout for its sheer audacity, even if it doesn't always land perfectly. It's the kind of episode that makes you question the sanity of the writers. And honestly, that's part of the fun. Okay, let's dive into the nitty-gritty, the moments that made us either laugh, cringe, or just stare blankly at the screen. First up, the whole saloon next to the salon gag. It's so simple, so dumb, but it sets the tone perfectly. You see the cowboy looking absolutely wrecked, and you assume some epic bar brawl or Wild West shootout. But no, he just got confused because the hairspray fumes from the salon interfered with the whiskey fumes from the saloon. It's a wonderfully mundane reason for a cowboy's downfall, and that's what makes it so good. It's a subversion of expectations that's purely comedic. I mean, imagine being a hardened gunslinger, ready for a duel, and you're taken down by a bad perm. It's the kind of thing you'd never see in a serious Western, and that's why it's peak Family Guy. It shows they can still find humor in the most unexpected, low-stakes situations. My only critique here is that they could have leaned into the visual gag even more. Maybe the cowboy has glitter in his beard or a feather boa sticking out of his gun holster. Just little touches to emphasize the cross-contamination of the two establishments. But even as it is, it's a solid opener for the weirdness to come. Then we get to the poker game with Quiet Burp. This guy's name alone is comedy gold. The idea of a legendary gambler being almost silent, except for the occasional, well, burp, is hilarious. When he's accused of cheating with 4 deuces, it's such a bad hand to cheat with. It makes you wonder if he's either a terrible cheat or incredibly lucky and just happened to get those cards. The tension is built up, the music swells, and then it's just dismissed because his hand is terrible. It's a classic Family Guy move, building up a huge moment only to deflate it with an anticlimax. I would have loved to see them actually investigate the cheating, maybe with some over-the-top forensics in the Old West, like a magnifying glass examining the cards for microfractures or something equally ridiculous. And the whole pluck metaphor for cheating? Brilliant. It's so specific and weird. Vivienne, whose name is a whole other level of commentary, then steps in, and the whole man with no name thing, referencing the man with no name from the Clint Eastwood films, is a nice touch. It's these little nods to classic cinema that elevate the joke. They could have made Vivienne a more prominent, threatening figure from the start, building the suspense around who this handler is. Instead, it's this fleeting moment that adds to the general confusion of the scene. The quick draw that follows is also a bit of a letdown, honestly. It feels rushed, like they wanted to get to the train sequence as fast as possible. I would have stretched out that poker game, let the accusations fly, let the tension build even more, and maybe had Quiet Burp actually win the hand through sheer dumb luck or a really convoluted yet somehow brilliant bluff. Now, the train sequence. This is where the episode really starts to unravel, in the best way possible. The dialogue about building your own bank and bone saws during the Civil War, it's so specific and so off the wall. The idea of someone dulling their own bone saws to make money in the Civil War is just, yes. It's the kind of random historical detail that makes you laugh because it's so utterly bizarre. The line, "I made all my money and not sharp enough bone saws," is pure gold. It's anti-enterprise, anti-progress, all wrapped up in a morbid fascination with surgical tools. And then the newspaper clipping about a lady hanged for wearing pants. It's such a harsh, dark joke, but it's delivered with such nonchalance. Good. One less wacko on the streets. This show has a knack for making light of grim situations, and this is a prime example. It's the casual cruelty that makes it Family Guy. I'd have loved to see a visual gag with this, maybe a quick cut to a woman in pants being dragged off by a mob, or the person reading the paper reacting with a slight nod of approval. The uninhabited asterisk line is another layer of absurdity. What asterisk? What does it mean? It's a joke that exists only in the mind of the person reading it, and that's what makes it funny. The writers are playing with the idea of exposition and narrative itself. As for what I would change, I'd have liked to see the Civil War bonesaw guy get more screen time, or at least have his story connect more directly to the main plot, instead of feeling like a random tangent. Maybe the stolen money was originally intended for his bonesaw business, or something equally ridiculous. The improv group Subplot with John Wilkes Booth is a masterclass in comedic tangents. The idea that these characters are part of some obscure improv troupe and that John Wilkes Booth was a member who got kicked out is hilarious. The line, "We mutual decision to kick John Wilkes Booth out of our improv group. Who knew he was going to do that?" is perfect. It's like they're casually discussing a neighborhood dispute, but it's about one of history's most infamous figures. And the student's honest reaction? Honestly, I was just glad he finally made an active choice on stage. That's the kind of observational humor that's surprisingly sharp. It touches on the nature of performance and the expectations we have of artists. It also humanizes Booth in a really twisted way, suggesting he was maybe just a bad actor looking for a big break. I would have loved to see a quick flashback to their improv session, with Booth doing something spectacularly terrible, like an overly dramatic death scene that was meant to be comedic but just came off as genuinely disturbing. Or maybe he was just really bad at listening to direction. The whole country by train line is a nice peaceful moment before everything goes sideways again. It's a brief respite, a moment of genuine appreciation for travel, which is immediately shattered when the money is demanded. The dialogue here, "Hey Vivienne, no biggie here, but did you need that money for anything?" delivered by the bandit is so casually menacing. It's the politeness that makes it chilling. I'd have loved to see the person receiving the money try to explain why they needed it, perhaps for something utterly mundane and inappropriate for the Wild West, like a subscription to a magazine. Wild Joe's backstory for his name is another gem. Kissing a woman you weren't engaged to and ruining her for other men, that's some serious damage. And the Ghost Pepper Challenge contemplation? It shows a man wrestling with primal urges and deciding that burning your mouth is worse than eternal societal shame. It's a relatable, albeit extreme, dilemma. The little Bobby Oppenheimer over there playing with firecrackers line is a dark foreshadowing, given Oppenheimer's future work. It's a blink and you'll miss it callback to historical context, injecting a layer of grim irony into the otherwise lighthearted Western setting. And the rural Jew comment? It's the kind of blunt, observational humor that this show is known for, pushing boundaries. It's not punching down, it's just stating a perceived societal observation with no filter. It's uncomfortable, but that's the point. It forces you to think about stereotypes. My favorite part of this whole segment is the bandit trail leading to Golden Stream, but having to go through Indian territory. It's presented as a warning, and then immediately followed by a bit about someone taking a wavy leak by some bushes. It's that juxtaposition of serious danger and complete silliness that makes it work. I would have liked to see them actually encounter Native Americans, but in a way that subverted expectations. Perhaps the Native Americans are the ones complaining about the loud bandits, or offering them directions with a sarcastic tone. The letter for Quiet Burp is a great gag. 9 years of asking everyone he sees for a letter because it has no address, that's commitment to a bit. And it's from Skidmore. The fact that it's for someone else but he's been waiting for it makes it even funnier. The idea of him being on an overweight list for a letter is just nonsensical, and that's why it lands. It speaks to the arbitrary nature of many bureaucratic systems, even in the Wild West. I would have played up the interaction with the letter carrier even more, making them a more colorful character with their own bizarre backstory. The carpetbaggers and their tux-medicated pads joke is a deep-cut reference, poking fun at the opportunistic Northerners after the Civil War, but with a modern, mundane product. It's a testament to the writer's ability to blend historical context with everyday annoyances. The discovery that the tracks have stopped and the bandit must be nearby is a classic suspense builder, but then it immediately gets undercut by the guy saying he might join them just as a joke. It's that constant tonal whiplash that keeps you engaged. And the horse saving him when someone was going to put me down, that's a nice little moment of gratitude in a world of chaos. Sheriff West, obsessed with coats? It's a small detail, but it's the kind of character quirk that makes the world feel more lived in, even if it's a cartoon. The threat of a necktie social is a brutal but funny euphemism for hanging. It's dark humor at its finest. The Nautica reference, as a brand of Marshall's goods, is peak Family Guy absurdity. They'll throw in a pop culture reference from any decade if it serves the joke. It's that unexpected specificity that makes it hilarious. I would have dedicated more time to the character interactions in the town, letting Sheriff West have more coat-related conversations and showing the townsfolk reacting to the arrival of the hired guns. The whole thing feels a bit rushed in places, and expanding those character moments would have paid off. The schoolhouse teacher bit is another level of weird. The idea that she's teaching at Arizona State University in the 1800s is, of course, impossible, but that's Family Guy. The husband dying in childbirth and the locket picture, all of it leads to a truly bizarre reveal. The line, "Her husband died in childbirth, his picture is in that locket. Oh, it's huge," is a masterclass in misdirection. You expect a sentimental moment, and instead you get that. And then the pivot to, she likes fat guys, and the even weirder explanation about the picture of the piece he was swinging. It's crude, it's shocking, and it's exactly what you'd expect. It's the kind of joke that makes you laugh through your discomfort. The awkward invitation to dinner and dancing, how about 6:30? Perfect. And hey, maybe we could go dancing after. I haven't been in forever. Is so jarringly normal after the preceding conversation. The sudden gunfiring during the dance music is the perfect punctuation mark on the absurdity. I'd have liked to see the other students' reactions to the armed stranger walking into their classroom. Were they terrified? Bored? Used to it? Exploring that could have added another layer of dark humor. The cute cowboys come quick warm-up for the Shakespearean drama is just bizarre. The idea of grizzled cowboys wanting Shakespeare is funny enough, but the actual Shakespearean line being so obscure, "Shine out, fair sun, till I have bought a glass, so that I may see my shadow as I pass," is even funnier. It shows they're trying to be cultured, but failing miserably. The improv scene that follows, with the Yellowstone prompt and the barrel maker, is a good example of how these random elements come together. The line, "There's some fertile ground, I see why you mentioned it," is peak innuendo. The crowd booing the naked king in Yellowstone 1471 is a nice touch, showing their disinterest. The comparison to minstrel performers is a dark joke that lands because of the show's willingness to go there. The James A. Garfield impression, complete with a love for lasagna and hatred for Mondays, is funny because of the sheer lack of context or familiarity. It's a meta joke about impressions and audience knowledge. I would have loved to see a more direct connection between the improv group and the main plot. Perhaps one of the characters in the improv group is actually a bandit or has information. The soufflé and filet mignon joke, with the words just arriving, is a subtle jab at how quickly modern concepts can be anachronistically imposed onto historical settings. It's a commentary on how we view the past through a modern lens. The Civil War veteran story about the two-sided uniform and eating dead butts for 4 years is grim, horrifying, and hilariously delivered. It's the sheer commitment to the bit that makes it funny. The choice between living in Atlanta as a woman or surviving on dead butts is a classic Family Guy choice that highlights the bleakness of the past in a darkly comedic way. His wish to have experienced more when he was younger and now being a widow, with students not respecting her, is poignant in its own way. The student who felt a spark with her is a nice moment of genuine connection, a brief respite from the chaos. The callback to Madeline from Atlanta with her denial, "No, that is no longer my truth," is a great character moment, showing how people tried to reinvent themselves. The costume repair, livery stable, brothel, and dry goods stores leading to Paris and Ultimate Zag holiday is a bizarre leap, but it fits the episode's chaotic logic. It's like they're building a Western town and then deciding it's actually a portal to France. The wettest flower in the West and oatmeal ready to eat before it's even opened are classic Family Guy product placement parodies that are nonsensical and hilarious. Crystalia hair tonic? Random and specific. The peaceful scene with the 1,000 Asians dynamiting a mountain is a jarring, darkly comedic image. It's the kind of visual that sticks with you. The woman who had 8 children but 12 died at birth, leading to a 140% mortality rate, is a stark reminder of the harsh realities of the past, presented with typical Family Guy insensitivity. It's the kind of joke that makes you laugh and then feel guilty about it. The "most fun I've had in a while" lines from both characters feel genuinely sweet, creating a moment of connection amidst the chaos. The fart joke, "Sorry, I was holding that. I didn't want to crack my saddle," is a perfect blend of crude humor and a surprisingly practical, albeit gross, reason. It's the kind of detail that elevates a fart joke from being just a fart joke. The Pinkerton agent looking for the saloon and going, "Buns glazing," is a great bit of wordplay and desperation. It's a funny image. The reveal that Lucy is the train robber is a solid twist, and her motivation, the destruction brought by bone saws, is perfectly aligned with the episode's earlier bizarre tangents. It ties everything together in a way that's both surprising and expected. The line, "The stolen money was redistributed to their families," makes her a Robin Hood figure, albeit a slightly deranged one. Vivienne being a bad guy is also a good twist, connecting back to the earlier poker scene. The "name one movie where the good guy uses a cane" is a classic Family Guy deep dive into a niche topic, completely out of nowhere, and then the Michael J. Fox reference, which even the characters don't know, makes it even funnier. It's a commentary on pop culture legacy. The prostitute scene where the guy cries in her lap is a surprisingly vulnerable and funny moment. It's unexpected for a character named Django. The idea that the chicks will do anything in this town is a sad but accurate observation about desperation. Quiet's lack of help in hunting the robber, followed by his revelation that he's in love with the robber and registered at the wet goods store, is peak absurdity. It's the ultimate bachelor party announcement gone wrong. The disappointment from the posse about not being the best man and the first posse speech is a great exploration of friendship and belonging, even in this ridiculous context. The line, "You told us we were the best posse you ever had," is a classic betrayal moment. The posse's reaction, "I think this posse stinks. Sorry, burp," is a perfect send-off for their disappointment. The $5,000 for St. Louis is a clear goal, and the gold panning setup is a classic Western trope about greed and betrayal. The pact to watch each other's stuff is a sign of trust, immediately undermined by the mention of a metallic click being a twig. It's the foreshadowing of disaster. I would have loved to see more of the Civil War veteran's story, perhaps a flashback to the horrors he endured. Also, more interaction between Vivienne and the bad guy persona she adopts would have been interesting. I'd have loved to see the initial encounter between the Pinkerton agent and Lucy, setting up the stakes more clearly. Let's check in on our characters. Quiet Burp, as established, is a man of few words and many, many burps. In this episode, he's less a character and more a walking gag, a vehicle for the absurdity. His desperation for a letter and his eventual romantic entanglement with the train robber, Lucy, are surprisingly sweet in a very weird Family Guy way. He goes from being this legendary poker player to a love-struck goofball, and that's a fun arc, even if it's compressed into the last 20 minutes. He embodies the show's ability to take a silly premise and run with it. Vivienne, on the other hand, is the chameleon. She's the handler, the smooth talker, the man's name, the bandit's accomplice. She's got multiple layers, and it's fun to watch her switch gears. She represents the deception and hidden agendas that are so common in Westerns, but twisted into a Family Guy nightmare. Her arc is less about personal growth and more about her shifting allegiances and her role in the chaotic plot. She's the cool, enigmatic figure that drives a lot of the plot forward, and her motivations are always a little murky, which is exactly how you want a character like that. Django is your gruff, cynical cowboy type, but with a surprisingly sensitive side, revealed in his interaction with the prostitute and his hurt feelings about not being the best man. He's the voice of reason, or at least the voice of mild disappointment in a world of madness. His journey throughout the episode is about friendship and feeling left out, which is surprisingly relatable. He's the character who, despite the absurdity, grounds the emotional stakes, even if those stakes involve being a groomsman in a wedding between a burping gambler and a train robber. The posse members, though less defined, are essential. They represent the camaraderie and the inevitable heartbreak of fractured friendships. Their anger at Quiet and their hurt feelings when he chooses Lucy over them is a classic friend group dynamic, amplified by the stakes of a potential fortune and a wedding. They're the loyal companions who are ultimately sidelined by a whirlwind romance. A story as old as time, but with more gunfights. Lucy, the train robber, is the most surprisingly well-developed character. Her motivations, tied to the Bonesaw subplot, give her a pseudo-heroic edge. She's not just a criminal, she's a vigilante of sorts. Her romance with Quiet Burp is the heart of the episode's conclusion, and it's a testament to the show's ability to find genuine, albeit bizarre, emotional connections amidst the chaos. She's the catalyst for Quiet's transformation and the embodiment of unexpected love in the Wild West. Now for the hidden gems, the little things you might have missed. Remember that guy complaining about bone saws during the Civil War? The specificity of not sharp enough bone saws is a gag that requires you to pay attention to the details. It's not just weapons, it's a very particular, slightly morbid, and utterly useless product. It's a perfect example of the show's commitment to creating bizarre, niche businesses for its characters. Then, there's the whole John Wilkes Booth improv group. The fact that they're performing Shakespeare for cowboys is already funny, but the very existence of this group, their mundane problems contrasted with Booth's historical infamy, is a rich vein of humor that many might overlook. It's a commentary on the trivialization of significant historical figures in modern media. The mention of the asterisk next to uninhabited on the map is another subtle visual gag. The characters don't know what it means, and neither do we, but the fact that they question it and then move on is the joke. It's the acknowledgement of narrative holes and unexplained details that many shows would gloss over. The Nautica reference for the marshal's office is a brilliant anachronism that flies by if you're not paying attention to brands. It's the kind of random pop culture insertion that feels both out of place and perfectly fitting for Family Guy. It highlights how we view historical periods through the filter of modern consumerism. And finally, the character of Sheriff West being obsessed with coats. It's a small character beat, a tiny detail, but it adds a layer of personality that could easily be missed if you're just focused on the main plot. It's these little quirks that make the otherwise generic Western setting feel slightly more unique. I would have loved to see more of these details, like background characters wearing historically inaccurate but funny hats, or overheard conversations about absurd 1800s trends. Let's play the what-if game. What if John Wilkes Booth wasn't kicked out of the improv group? Imagine the entire play descending into chaos as Booth, fueled by his real-life grievances, starts improvising assassination attempts on stage. It would have been a darkly comedic and meta take on history and performance art. Or what if the train robber, Lucy, wasn't motivated by the bone saws, but by something even more mundane and relatable, like student loan debt from her time at Skidmore? It would have made her a modern-day folk hero, a relatable rebel. And what if Quiet Burp wasn't the legendary gambler, but actually terrible at poker, and his legend was just a series of lucky accidents that he embellished over the years? That would have made his romantic subplot with Lucy even more poignant, as they're both frauds in their own way, finding love amidst their deceptions. The whole episode could have leaned into the idea of performative identities in the Old West. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm giving this episode a solid 7.7 out of 10. Why not a clean 8? Because while the sheer volume of bizarre jokes and tangents is impressive, the pacing occasionally falters, and some threads feel a bit underdeveloped. The Civil War Bonesaw guy, for example, is hilarious, but feels like he could have been more integrated. The 0.7 points are for the sheer audacity, the willingness to embrace the absurd, and the unexpected emotional resonance in the final moments. This episode is definitely for the die-hard Family Guy fans, the ones who appreciate the show's particular brand of anarchy and aren't afraid of a few historical inaccuracies or crude jokes. Casual viewers might find it too disjointed. Someone who wants a tightly plotted narrative might be frustrated. But for those who love the show's ability to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks, this is a rewarding experience. What would have pushed it higher? A more cohesive connection between the various subplots, and maybe a stronger thematic through-line beyond "the West was weird." And to loop back to the beginning, if the director had just let those tumbleweeds roll in silence for 15 seconds, maybe we'd have a different kind of masterpiece. But alas, we got this wild, wonderful, and utterly baffling journey through the Family Guy version of the American West. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way.